Crash Landing on You, another deep dive, looking at Tan's mother's response to Tan in her time of grief. To give you some context, Kimjunghyun just died, and he died dramatically in Tan's arms, right? She watched everything happening and going down at the end of episode 15, episode 16. Spoiler alert, sorry. So hopefully you watch this K-drama. But I really want to talk about how depressed and sad Tan is. She's grieving. She loved this man, right? And we finally realize this as an audience, how much she loves him. Now, during this time, you see Tan's mother at a loss and her uncle trying to help her. And that's what's hard about grief, the people around those who are grieving or the person grieving, how to help those who are grieving and going through it. It's very difficult. That's why grief is so uncomfortable to talk about, because some people don't know what to do for the grieving person. And it's not a linear process. Grief is not linear. I wish it was. I wish we could say, hey, you're going to start here with denial, and then you're going to end up with the stage of acceptance within 6 to 8 months. And that's the form of grief. It's not that easy. And grief, I would say, is more of a circular process. There are 5 stages of grief traditionally based on the Kubler-Ross model. It started off with denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But as of late, 2 new stages have been added, which I do agree with. Shock to begin with before the denial, and testing right before acceptance. So technically 7 stages of grief. Again, not linear. So you could be at one day depressed, then go to bargaining, denial, shock again, oh my gosh, did this really happen? To acceptance one day, but then something triggers you or something happens in your life a couple years down the road, and then you're back to feeling the denial again, or anger or depression. Those are normal. Our emotions are not linear, right? I've said this before. So grief, to go back to what Tana's experiencing. At this time, maybe it looks like she's going through the shock part, denial, depression for sure, because she can't get out of bed. And you know Tan, she's been this vibrant character, strong woman, and then we see her in bed, unable to move, listless. And Tan's mother, you see her up in arms going, how can we help you? What can we do? Help us help you, kind of thing. Well, in this scene, episode 16, Tan's mother finally throws up her arms and she asks her, what can we do to help you? Pleading with her, tell me. Tan says, leave me alone. Please just leave me alone. And I'm sure if you've experienced grief, you've said this to other people, or perhaps those who have been around someone grieving, someone has said this to you. What do you do? Because it's easy to leave them alone. In fact, it's the easier thing to do, because it's hard for you to help that grieving person. You don't know what to do. Maybe you haven't been experiencing what they're experiencing, or you've never gone through what they've gone through, whatever that loss is. And so you don't know what to say. So you're like, okay, let me just leave. Let me give them time. We hear that a lot, right? Let's give them time to heal and to grieve and all this stuff. And that is very much needed, yes. You want to respect that person's space to heal. However, Tan's mother by this point has reached a certain point of being able to do that and leaving her daughter alone. So finally, she says something very important that I think I'd like to share with you. So there's more to that, and there's a funny line that the uncle says, like, oh, and I'll find you a better guy. Anyways, because there's always comic relief in K-dramas. But what she's saying to Tan is, we are here to cry with you. We are here to listen to you, to experience this with you. That's empathy, right? And then showing compassion, doing something about it, where she's going to have to show that. So before, again, it was the typical, I want to say typical of how do we help you? Okay, we're here, let's give you food, get up, you need to be active, come on, you can move on. This time around, it was, okay, we're meeting you where you're at. We're going to cry with you, we're going to listen to you, we are here. And guess what? After this moment of Tan's mother saying that, they leave, feeling like, Tan's mother said her piece. She's like, okay, I did the best I could. But guess what happens? Tan gets up out of bed and comes over to her mom and says, I'm going to get revenge, or I'm ready to act upon this. And that's when Tan's mother's like, you got it. We're here with you. But that's not the point. The point is what Tan's mother says, that we are here to cry with you and listen to you. We're here to experience this with you. I believe that's how Tan gets up and finds the strength. Again, there's no solutions that Tan's mother gave her. She didn't say, here's what we're going to do. And here's the food for you to help you feel better. And then we're going to do this activity. And I know that's how people want to help. But grief sometimes just means meeting the person where they're at. Literally in that moment. Depressed, listless, whatever that is, they're with you. The acting was great. I thought the mother looking into her daughter's eyes and that her daughter looking into her mother's eyes and seeing just the authenticity there, right? Okay, her mother meeting you. I'm with you. I'm where you're at. It's that I'm not going to be trying to solve at this point, which we like to do as parents, right? But it was about, let me meet you where you're at. And this is where you're at, the depressed state. I hope that clears things up. Grief, again, very difficult. In fact, some people, it's hard for them to help somebody else because they don't know what to say. And I understand that. I mean, there is no perfect thing to say, really. But the thing is to validate, to meet them where they're at, even if it's uncomfortable for you. But the change that we see in Tan, getting out of bed and coming out of the room, much to the surprise of Tan's mother and her uncle, after Tan's mother said that. How we address grief. Emotionally speaking, it's one of the hardest things, I think, right? There's no rhyme or reason to grief. And for those of you who have gone through loss of loved one, as this particular character did, where she lost the man that she loved, you could be triggered in any given moment. This is to say, at that moment, she got up, was able to have that inkling of strength to move forward, move one step forward, maybe like a step back, depending on where she is the next day or the next week or the next month. So those stages of grief, again, it's been modified to have 7 stages from the Kubler-Ross model. Now I would say there's shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and then acceptance. I hope I said all 7. But it's important to know that that is a circular process, and it's going like this, right? And that's how grief works. So that's the mental health deep dive I wanted to do with this particular episode on Crash Landing.